exercise. I just need you, Dana, to kind of clarify that for me.
Well, so what is the what if?
Well, I mean, we've had all these radical kind of ideas. If we're putting together a 5-year sustainability plan, are we putting it based on its current model, or are we changing the model?
Caroline, are you saying that let's just leave the mission statement alone until we, answer some of these other questions, instead of making a change to the mission statement now, and then after we work in some of these sustainability questions, we might change it again? And so we've got,
I mean, that's my initial thought. Yes.
Yep. That makes sense to me, Jeff, that we would keep the parameters of our current mission statement and go through this exercise and see if what we do is actually sustainable.
I agree.
And does it fit the mission statement, or do we tweak the mission statement?
Yes. And then that will tell us, do we tweak the mission statement? Do we keep it as it is? Or do we need to look at a whole new thing based on what we've discovered in this exercise? Does that make sense?
Yep.
I assume when you say at least for now, keep the mission statement, you mean with the last phrase of a Catholic LaSallian on there?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. We're not dumping LaSallian or Catholic.
Yeah.
But that we can say.
I know some good Baptists if we need them.
Well, we need them.
Seminary training, so.
So, and Caroline makes a fabulous point in that, without money, there is no mission. And I'll tell you, there are some nonprofits in the world that I don't even think their mission is as great as yours, and they seem to be able to raise money. Wouldn't you agree, Caroline?
I would agree.
Yeah. And then I'm like, how are they raising all that money? How they aren't even that great. And really what it comes down to is they're working their butts off, and their board members are making lots of connections and connecting people and getting it all going. So, and I know you guys have been very instrumental in doing a lot of that. So that's going to be part of what, in terms of the sustainability, it's the people in this virtual room who are going to decide through their actions whether or not this happens.
Dana, in a lot of this reading material, there's some phrases such as nonprofit best practices. Is it, for your review of our sustainability, are we out of line with that?
I would say 99.9% of nonprofits have some weaknesses in that area, because it's, you kind of have this ideal is what all of the best practices are. And so, yes, I would absolutely say there are some things. Now, some of the things with San Miguel are because it is a religious institution that, sometimes things you kind of are a balance between a ministry and a nonprofit. But yes, there are always best practices for nonprofits. And you're always going to be set up more for success if you adopt and commit to those best practices. And there are lots of resources for determining what those are, and to measure your own performance in alignment with those, and to start improving on them. The Oklahoma Center for Nonprofits has a board boot camp kind of program that nonprofit boards can go through, and it's like, here's what, according to best practices, here's what nonprofits are supposed to be doing. Here's how the financials are supposed to be set up. Here's how the bylaws are supposed to be set up. And they take you through all of that. And so one best practice is to become that's called Foundations for Excellence. Is that right? Yeah, Foundations for Excellence. And so having your board go through that training is technically a best practice. And I don't know if the San Miguel board has gone through that in the past, but if so, it's been a long time. Is anyone familiar with that, or am I just speaking a whole new language?
I'm familiar with it.
Okay.
I've never
I'm
gone
familiar,
through
but I don't think, since I've been here, we haven't done it.
Okay.
No.
Okay.
but I think it's something we should look into.
Absolutely. And I think that that's part of, as we go through this, this exercise today, and we'll talk a little bit more about that here in a little while. But as we go through this exercise, it will be setting up the, a lot of it is setting up, we're probably not real good at doing this. So how are we going to get better at that? Another thing that I want to bring up about when we go into these different rooms and having discussions, I think what Caroline said is, I think she made a really good point in that you don't really want to talk about how are we going to increase employee satisfaction if you don't even know if your mission is going to continue. So I totally understand all of that. On a lot of the issues and a lot of the goals and the actions, what you're going to run up against is we don't really know how we're going to do that. Or before we do that, we kind of need this, and this. That is planning. Saying you don't know and you're going to have to get information is part of the planning process. So please don't feel like, well, we can't do anything with this because we don't know enough information. Part of your first step might be gathering more information. And what kind of information would you need? And those are the kinds of things that you're going to need to talk through and think about and just build that plan. And so even if you're working on something that's not even mission related, but you feel like you need that input, it's okay to put all of that in there. Because regardless of if you are around for, even if San Miguel is gone in 6 months, God forbid, I don't think it'll happen. But even if you were gone for 6 months, in the next 6 months, wouldn't you want to spend the next 6 months at least doing a pretty good job at what you're doing? Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And so that's, there's not one element of a nonprofit or a mission or a school. There's not a single element of that works in a vacuum. Fundraising affects the mission. Governance affects fundraising and the mission. I mean, they all work interchangeably. But as you well know, because you guys have been doing it a long time, you kind of have to divide and conquer the work in order to get it done in those certain areas. So I do think that there's a big question about the Dancing with the Stars and how that is such a huge part of your budget. What percentage of your budget comes from that? I know we've talked about it before.
Oh my gosh.
More than 50%.
Right. So that's
dangerous territory. That's a dangerous statistic.
It is a really dangerous statistic. And I'll be honest with you, I cannot think of another nonprofit, unless it's a PTA or something, that gets that high a percentage of their overall budget from one event. So it's a danger. And it's something, and I know Caroline and I have probably talked about it more than once over the years of, okay, so what do we do if? And so I think if finally happened in 2020. And so I know that you guys have scrounged around and worked really hard, but it would have been really nice 3 years ago to have had a plan in place about what we're going to do if something falls through. So, where you guys are going to be in 24 months is going to be based on what you do today. So where you are today is impacted by what you were doing 2 years ago. So let's go ahead and just keep moving forward. Does anyone else have any, and we're going to talk more about the working committees and on kind of the project that you're going to go into, but I want to make sure that no one's questions or concerns or comments are left out about it, anything that we've talked to up until now.
I'm good.
Does anyone have any, I mean, I feel like Caroline sort of expressed some concerns about moving forward on planning other things, if we're not sure about the sustainability part of it. And of course, I would make the argument that all of this is about sustainability. But does anybody else kind of share that concern with Caroline?
Yes, and what I'm willing to do is to say, okay, I don't know quite how we're going to get there, but let's go through this exercise and see how it takes us to the next steps and the next things that we need to consider.
Okay.
It seems a little cart before the horse, but this may be the conduit that gets us to where our next discussion is, if that makes sense.
I agree with that.
Okay.
I can see that.
Good. Awesome. Do you feel like do you feel that the sustainability conversation needs to take place before you do anything else? Or do you feel, I mean, Katie, you said you feel okay kind of going forward and, well, let me restate my question. What information do you need in order to make a determination about sustainability? What information do you need?
What are we sustaining? Are we sustaining the school as it exists now according to our current mission statement? Or are we trying to sustain something else, bigger, greater, smaller, whatever? But we have to start somewhere. We have to start with some kind of idea, some kind of mission statement in order to go forward at all. And then as we proceed, if we need to back up and say, you know, this isn't going to work, let's look at that mission statement again. That makes sense to me.
Okay. Who else? What other information do you guys need?
Well, to me, we started this whole exercise with Dana in order to put some shape and form and plan to the future of San Miguel. And we've all invested some time. Dana's put a lot of time in it. I suggest we not go any farther with this mission statement. I think it's a bit of a distraction, and that we go through the steps that she has laid out and has done with other clients in the past, as long as we have sufficient time and effort in the process somewhere where sustainability is squarely in the middle of the table and we all face it realistically and get our thinking caps on and let Caroline walk out of the room with something to hang on to as to where we're going. But Dana's got a process here, and as everybody said, these things are all intertwined. But I suggest we do the process, but there has to be some time in this day or whenever for us all to talk about the iceberg and make a plan to get around it.
And I see today as the springboard into all the things we're going to have to discuss and decide next. They may be special meetings that we need to hold other than our board meetings, but this doesn't put the period at the end of the sentence today. And Bob, I mean no offense to you, but I think we all kind of have to get out of the mindset of saying we need to develop a plan and hand it off to Caroline, because yes, she's our development director, but we are her team we're her foot soldiers in that regard.
I know that. I just want her to sleep better.
Thanks.
Well, and
I think that would be the goal, is for not that Caroline would do everything, but that she would walk out of a meeting knowing what's going to happen and knowing what her resources are to get it going. And I think we all agree that's the.
You said it better than I did. That's right.
There you go. Yeah, that's good. Jeff, did you have a comment?
yeah, I was just going to say, I mean, if we look at this, backwards, if fundraising wasn't a problem, then, would any of these discussions really be needed? And should we focus the greatest amount on